"Look, guys, the poor man brought a snack from home again," shouted Tyler Whitmore, 12, pointing to the table where Diego Morales was silently ate his homemade sandwich. The refectory of the prestigious Riverside Academy echoed with the laughter of his colleagues, all sons of the city's elite. Diego, also 12, kept his eyes fixed on his plate. His parents, Jose and Carmen Morales, worked a double day to pay the partial scholarship that allowed his son to study at that expensive school. The cheese and ham sandwich that his mother prepared with such affection every morning suddenly seemed to embarrass him in front of those boys who had lunch gourmet dishes delivered by app. "Seriously, man, my mother spends more on a meal than her parents earn in a week," Tyler continued, causing more laughs. His impeccable uniform and brand sneakers brutally contrast with simple, but always clean clothes from Diego. "I bet you share an apartment with 10 more Mexican families, right?" The laugh echoed through the cafeteria as a cruel wave. Madison, Tyler's colleague, filmed discreetly with his cell phone as he commented, "Guys, this will pump on TikTok. Look at the poor guy's face." Professor Martinez, who supervised lunch, pretended not to hear while checking out her own emails. Like many school staff, she knew that confronting a Whitmore meant problems. The family donated millions to the Riverside Academy annually, and their word was enough to fire any employee who displeased them. Diego kept the rest of the sandwich in his backpack and got up calmly. His eyes, however, showed no humiliation. There was something deeper there, a silent determination that came from those who had already faced much greater challenges than school provocations. That serenity intrigued some more attentive observers. "Fleeing again, Mexican?" Tyler shouted as Diego walked toward the exit. "I bet you don't even know how to speak English, right? Or are you going to cry to your cleaning mom?" The comment about his mother made Diego stop for a second. His fists closed briefly, but he took a deep breath and kept walking. What Tyler didn't know was that Diego spoke 4 languages fluently, including French and Mandarin. What none of them knew was that this poor boy had survived a journey that would break most adults, and what absolutely no one imagined was that Diego's mother, Carmen Morales, was not exactly who everyone thought she was. "Hey Tyler, did you see that he didn't even react?" he whispered Madison, keeping his cell phone. "Strange, right? Most would have started to cry or broken up." "I don't know. It must be used to it," Tyler responded with disdain, but something in Diego's behavior bothered him. There was a dignity on that boy who didn't break, no matter how much he tried to humiliate him. As Diego went out of the cafeteria with his head held high, Tyler continued his performance to his friends, without realizing that his words were being recorded by Emma Chen's cell phone, a quiet colleague who had secretly documented the episodes of bullying at school. Emma, daughter of Asian immigrants, understood perfectly what Diego faced daily. At that moment, a few kilometers away, Carmen Morales ended her shift as a cleaning lady at the municipal hospital. His calloused hands kept cleaning products when his cell phone vibrated. When checking the messages, he found Diego's audio telling about another difficult day at school, describing in detail the humiliations Tyler had invented. His expression changed completely. It was not angry, but something much more dangerous. The cold determination of a mother who finally decided that it was time to act. Carmen closed her eyes for a moment, as if making a decision she had been postponing a long time ago. She opened the hospital closet drawer and removed a card she had kept for years. The printed name there would make anyone in the high society to tremble. Carmen Valdez Morales, Forator Senior Partner, Goldman & Associates International Law Firm. Can you imagine the shock that these spoiled boys would have discovered who really was the woman they despised as a simple cleaning lady? If this story of injustice and prejudice is touching your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because what you will find out about Carmen Morales will completely change your perspective on judging people by appearance. What Tyler didn't know is that his provocations were being documented for weeks. Emma Chen, sitting discreetly in the corner of the cafeteria, methodically organized the videos she had collected in a special folder on her mobile phone. As the daughter of Korean immigrants, she perfectly understood every humiliation that Diego faced daily. In the following days, the persecution intensified brutally. Tyler and his group began spreading rumors that Diego stole food from the canteen, forcing him to open his backpack publicly to prove his innocence. Madison created a group on WhatsApp called Express Deportation, where they shared cruel memes about immigrants, always ensuring that Diego saw them. "Dude, I bet his family doesn't even have documents," laughed Bryce during the physical education class while purposely pushing Diego. "My dad meets immigration people, a little and by Mexico." Professor Davis pretended not to listen, as always. The Riverside Academy had an unofficial policy. Problems with donor families were ignored. Problems with scholars were solved quickly with transfers or expulsions. Diego remained impassive in the face of each provocation, which deeply irritated Tyler. There was something on that boy who challenged all the dynamics of power he knew. Usually their victims broke in a matter of days, begged to be left alone, or simply changed schools. "Why does this idiot never react?" Tyler asked, frustrated for Madison. "It's like he knew something we don't know." The situation at home of the Morales was more complex than anyone could imagine. Jose worked as a gardener for rich families during the day and carried trucks in Porto at night. His calloused sunburn told the story of those who did not know rest. Carmen kept 3 jobs: cleaning lady at the municipal hospital from 5 in the morning to noon, cleaning in corporate offices on weekends, and elderly caregiver 2 nights a week. Its fingers, roughly chemical, hid scars from a previous life that few knew. But there was something that the Morales family kept as the most precious of secrets. Carmen had not always been a manual worker struggling to survive. 10 years earlier, in another country, she had been one of the most brilliant and most respected lawyers in the region, expert in international law and human rights. His meteoric career included cases that changed national legislation and refugee defense in international courts. Her impeccable reputation collapsed in a single morning when she categorically refused to accept a $2 million bribe proposal. The cartels that controlled human trafficking routes wanted her to lose a case against a children's exploration network. "I prefer to dye my hands dirty with the blood of innocent children," he had answered Carmen to the man who offered him the fortune. The death threat arrived exactly 48 hours later, on a Tuesday morning, along with photos of Diego leaving the primary school. A distorted voice on the phone was crystal clear. "You have until Thursday to disappear with your family, or your son dies in front of the school." Carmen had to make the hardest decision of his life, to give up everything he had built to save Diego. They fled with only 2 falsified bags and documents that cost all the family's economies, leaving behind a brilliant career, a luxurious house, and a reputation that had taken decades to build. "Mommy, why do you never tell people who you really are?" Diego asked one night, after another particularly difficult day at school, watching his mother sew patches in her school uniform. "Piss, our security depends on being invisible," Carmen replied, caressing her son's face with hands that had already signed sentences that released hundreds of people. "But that doesn't mean we are weak. It means we are preparing for the right time." Tyler further climbed his provocations when he found that Diego received subsidized lunch from the school. During a math presentation, he accidentally knocked down Diego's project on the ground, trampling him as he whispered, "Oops, just like their parents did our country when they invaded our border." At that moment accurate, Diego looked up and looked directly for the first time in weeks. There was no anger there was no humiliation. There was something much more dangerous: cold, calculating, and completely imprisonable assessment. Tyler felt an inexplicable shiver through his spine. Emma, who had witnessed everything from the first row, discreetly sent the latest video to an email address she had discovered through a paper at the secretariat table: carmenmorales.cuidadoshospital.gov. Carmen received the video at the end of his shift at the hospital. He once watched in total silence, observing every detail of the humiliation that his son endured with unflated dignity. Then he watched again, this time analyzing the aggressors' faces with the clinical accuracy of those who had already studied hundreds of criminals. It was then that she made the decision EU had been avoiding for years, for fear of exposing the family. Carmen opened her closet in the hospital locker room and removed a small hidden box behind cleaning products. Inside, carefully preserved in hermetic plastic, were their original diplomas, their professional wallets from 3 different countries, and a telephone list of contacts it kept for absolute emergencies. Every new humiliation that his son faced only strengthened something within her that those ignorant privileged could not even imagine, a silent force being fed by his own injustice they tried to impose on their family. What those arrogant and cruel people didn't know was that every act of contempt was meticulously writing their own defeat sentence, and Carmen Morales was about to charge a debt they didn't even imagine having contracted against the wrong person. Carmen didn't sleep that night. Sitting on the small kitchen table surrounded by papers she had not seen for years, she felt something awakening inside her. Not angry, but a surgical accuracy that had made her legendary in international courts. First, she needed to completely understand the terrain where she would fight. Carmen spent the dawn investigating the Riverside Academy, discovering a complex network of donations, tax exemptions, and political connections that supported his impeccable reputation. But it has also found something interesting: 3 processes for discrimination filed in the last 5 years, all silenced through financial agreements. The next morning, Carmen did something she had not done for a decade. She wore her only professional suit, carefully stored at the bottom of the closet. It was simple, but tailored by a tailor that once served only customers from the highest society. His first stop was the Morrison & Associate law firm, a respected firm that also served low-income customers through a pro bono program. Carmen did not mark scheduling, simply appeared at the reception at 8 in the morning. "I would like to talk to Mr. Morrison about a case of racial and socioeconomic discrimination," she told the receptionist, delivering a card she had ordered to print at night. Carmen Valdez Morales, former senior part of Goldman & Associates International. The receptionist looked at the card twice before taking the phone. David Morrison, civil rights lawyer for 20 years ago, almost choked on coffee when he heard the name. Carmen Valdez Morales was a legend among human rights lawyers. Their cases were studied in law schools around the world. "Is it really you?" Morrison asked when she entered her office. "You just disappeared 10 years ago. Everyone thought I was dead?" Carmen smiled coldly. "In a way it was. But some injustices have the power to resurrect to the dead." While Carmen built her legal strategy, Diego continued to face brutal climbing at school. Tyler had discovered that public humiliations did not break his target, so he changed his tactic. He began to attack his family directly. "I bet your mother doesn't even know how to read well," Tyler whispered during the history class. "That's why she can only work by cleaning a bathroom of important people like me." It was at this moment that something changed in Diego's eyes. For the first time, Tyler saw a spark of something dangerous, not uncontrolled anger, but the same calculating look his mother had when she analyzed opponents in court. Emma Chen, who was still documenting everything, noticed the change immediately. That same day, she made a courageous decision. He sought Diego after class. "I know you don't know me well," she said, discreetly showing your cell phone full of videos, "but I have evidence of everything they did to you, and I think your family deserves to know that they are not alone in this fight." Diego looked at Emma for a long moment, so, surprising her completely, smiled. The first genuine smile someone had seen from him at school. "Do you want to meet my mother?" he asked. "I think you would have a lot to talk about." That afternoon, Carmen received an unexpected call from Diego. "Mommy, there's a colleague here that I think you need to know, and she has some very interesting things to show." When Emma Chen entered the small house of Morales and saw Carmen organizing cool documents on the table, she immediately realized that this was not an ordinary cleaning lady. The posture, the way he spoke, the accuracy with which he organized papers, all shouted highly qualified professional. "You are a lawyer," said Emma, not as a question, but as a finding. Carmen looked at the 12-year-old girl who had risked her social position to defend her son. It was, and maybe it's time to be again. That's when Emma showed the videos that Carmen finally saw the extension complete of the cruelty that Diego faced silently. But instead of anger, she felt that familiar cold clarity that always preceded her greatest victories. "Emma," said Carmen after watching the last video, "you know what you did can completely change the lives of these boys, don't you?" "I hope so," said Emma without hesitation. "Because someone needs to pay for what they did." Carmen smiled. It was the smile of a predator who had just found the perfect prey. "Oh, my dear, they will pay, but not the way they imagine." That night, Carmen made an international call to contact that had not spoken a decade ago. "Marcus, it's me, Carmen. Yes, I'm alive, and I need a favor that may be very interested in your investigative newspaper. How about a story about how the American elite shapes racist future in its private, prestigious schools?" While Tyler slept quietly in his king-size bed, unconscious that he had chosen the wrong target for his cruel games, 3 women worked tirelessly preparing a storm that would change not only their lives, but would question the whole system that allowed privileged children to grow up believing that cruelty was a right of birth. The following Monday, Tyler arrived at the Riverside Academy as he always did, with excessive arrogance and the absolute certainty that the world belonged to him. What he didn't expect was to find an elegant woman talking to the Principal Sullivan at the entrance of the school. "Good morning, Tyler," said the director with a forced smile. "This is Dr. Carmen Valdez Morales, a civil rights lawyer. She would like to talk to you and her parents." Tyler barely looked at Carmen, seeing just another employee trying to cause problems. "My father is busy with important things. We have no time for silly meetings." "Oh, but I insist," Carmen replied with a cold smile, "especially after what we find out about your recent school activities." It was then that Tyler noticed Emma Chen standing next to Carmen, holding a folder full of documents. His stomach contracted slightly, but he kept his pose arrogant. "What are you talking about? I didn't do anything wrong." Carmen opened the folder and removed screen impressions that made Tyler's blood freezing instantly. They were screenshots of the Express Deportation group on WhatsApp, including every racist meme, every cruel comment about immigrants, every plan designed to humiliate Diego. "Interesting definition of nothing wrong," Carmen commented, flipping through the evidence methodically. "We have complete documentation of racial harassment, systemic cyberbullying, deportation threats, and incitement to hatred against minors. Director Sullivan paled to see the images. As an administrator, she knew exactly what it meant in legal terms and public relations to school. That must be a misunderstanding, stammered Tyler, his confidence quickly evaporating. Misunderstanding? Carmen laughed coldly. How does the video where you step on my son's project while saying, just like your parents did to our country, or perhaps the recording where you suggest that your father, know people of immigration, to deport a family? It was at this moment that Tyler realized the real dimension of the problem in which he had gotten. This was not a cleaning lady any complaining to school. He was a professional who spoke as if he knew each letter of the law. Who are you? Asked Tyler for the first time, showing real fear. I'm Carmen Valdez Morales, a former senior part of Goldman & Associates International Law Firm, expert in civil rights and hate crimes, and I'm also the mother of the boy you have been systematically tortured for months. The shock on Tyler's face was absolute. The cleaning lady he despised was actually one of the most respected lawyers in international human rights. But you are, Tyler tried to speak. Poor. Immigrants, lower. Carmen finished the sentence with surgical precision. Interesting how prejudice clouds the judgment completely, don't you think? At that very moment, David Morrison entered school accompanied by Marcus Chen, an investigative journalist at Washington Herald. Carmen had orchestrated each movement with the accuracy of a military operation. Mr. Whitmore, said Morrison, heading for Tyler's father, who had just arrived after an urgent connection from the school. Representing the Morales family, I inform you that we are flying a civil action for moral damages, racial harassment, and hostile school environment. The initial compensation is $2 million. Charles Whitmore, used to intimidating people with his influence, found himself face to face with opponents who were not impressed at all with his money. You can't sue my child, he's just a child. A cryany of 12 years who organized systematic racial hatred campaigns, Carmen answered calmly, and a father who taught this behavior through the example. We have recordings of yours too, Mr. Whitmore. Marcus Chen turned on the recorder and smiled. Mr. Whitmore, how would you comment on the allegations that your family uses donations to school as a way to cover up your child's discriminatory behavior? Tyler's world collapsed in a matter of minutes. Other parents began to arrive, alerted by the director about the delicate situation. Madison and Bryce watched horrified as their own parents found out about the WhatsApp group and the videos they had shared. Tyler, said Carmen, heading straight to the boy who now weeping, for months you assumed we were inferior based on our appearance and work. It never happened to you that you might be attacking people who could defend themselves in ways you didn't even imagine. The court had not ended yet. Emma Chen had one more at the sleeve. She had sent copies of all documentation to the State Department of Education, starting an official investigation into discriminatory practices at the Riverside Academy. What had begun as child bullying had become a national scandal that would question the whole system of privilege that allowed rich children to grow up believing that cruelty was a hereditary right. 3 months after the scandal that shook the Riverside Academy, life had changed dramatically to all involved. Tyler Whitmore was transferred to a public school after his family loses the lawsuit and paying compensation of $1.8 million to the Morales family. The Department of Education investigation revealed a systematic standard of discrimination at school, resulting in the dismissal of 3 employees, including Director Sullivan. The Riverside Academy was forced to implement a rigorous program of diversity and inclusion, personally supervised by Carmen. Ironic how things change, doesn't it? Commented Emma Chen, now president of the school's new Student Civil Rights Council, while walking through the courtyard with Diego. The transformation was visible. Students of different social backgrounds finally mixed without fear of reprisals. Diego, who was now openly talked about his experience in anti-bullying lectures, smiled when he saw Tyler wiping the dining room tables as part of his mandatory community service. You know, Emma, sometimes I think he has learned more in these 3 months than in his life. Carmen's revenge had been perfect not because it was cruel, but because it was educational. Charles Whitmore Mr. lost millionaire contracts when companies discovered about the case through the investigative report. His reputation in the business environment plummeted, and he was forced to sell the mansion to pay legal debts. Dad, Tyler said during one of his father's supervised visits, do you think they will forgive us one day? Charles, now living in a modest apartment and working as the insurance seller, looked at his son with deep sadness. Son, this is not forgiveness. It is about learning that our actions have consequences, and that humility is a lesson that life teaches us as hard as possible. Carmen had returned to law, opening an office specializing in immigrant rights. Your story has become national inspiration, proving that no matter how low life to knock you down, it is always possible to get up and fight. Mommy, said Diego one night, watching the mother organize cases for the next day, Do you regret hiding who you were for so long? Carmen smiled. The same woman who signed sentences releasing hundreds of people one day. Piss. Sometimes we need to hide to protect ourselves, but when the right time comes, we need to have the courage to show the world who we really are. Washington Herald has published a special series about the case, titled, When David Meets Goliath, as a family of immigrants challenged the system. The story was read by millions, inspiring other families to denounce discrimination in their communities. Emma Chen received a full scholarship to study investigative journalism at the University of Your Dreams. His courage to document injustice not only saved Diego, but changed the entire culture of the school. Madison and Bryce, the former Tyler followers, went through a social re-education program. Madison, particularly impacted by the process, became voluntary in a host center for immigrant families. Do you know what was the most satisfactory part of all this? Asked Carmen during an interview on local television. It was not seeing our advice suffering. He went to see my son recover his dignity and realized that he should never have embarrassed who he was. David Morrison, the lawyer, which helped Carmen later. In 20 years of career, I've never seen such a precise and ethically perfect strategy. Carmen not only got the case, she reformulated the whole system that allowed this kind of abuse to happen. The most powerful lesson came in the form of a letter Tyler wrote to Diego 6 months later, after completing his re-education program. Diego, I know I can never undo what I did, but I want you to know that you taught me something my parents have never achieved. What real force does not come from humiliating others, but from maintaining dignity even when everything seems lost. Your mother not only defeated me, she saved me from becoming an adult even worse than I was already becoming. Carmen's true revenge was not to destroy Tyler and his family, but force them to face their own actions and grow as human beings. She proved that the most powerful justice is not one that crushes the enemy, but the one that turns opponents into better people. Today, Diego studies at one of the best universities in the country with a full scholarship for academic merit. Carmen has one of the most respected law firms in the region. And Tyler? He works as a volunteer at a community center, teaching English to newly arrived immigrant families. The best revenge is not to repay the damage suffered. It is to achieve the success that their enemies could never imagine, while they offer them the chance to become better people in the process. If this story inspired you never to give up on injustice, leave your comment telling a similar situation you faced. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that when we combine intelligence with dignity, we not only beat our opponents, we transform the world around us.